My heart was pounding. I'm sweating. I was so overcome with emotion because I was freaking out. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You, Yourself, and Why, a self-discovery and wellness podcast dedicated to the daily practice of meeting yourself, getting to know the real you, so that every day you can be the latest and greatest version of who you really are for the people that matter to you most in this world. So today is episode 3, and I have to announce a retraction because when I had mentioned in the intro episode the Kickstarter for getting this podcast online was by listening to another podcast that inspires me called The Ancestral Mind, and I totally mispronounced the host of that show. His name is Colin Stuckert, not Colin Stuckworth. I don't even know where I got Stuckworth from. I feel almost like the moment I posted that online, the guy changed his last name. I'm like, it's always been Stuckworth, and now he changed it after I put it online and put it out there. That's his name, and he changed it on me. Honestly, by the time I get this online, he might change it to Stuck Butter. Or I gotta read my, I gotta pay attention to my notes better, I think. So his name is Colin Stuckert. He's at Colin Stuckert, Stuckert, and now that I'm spelling it, I'm questioning, so I'm gonna have to check. I have to check because I'm paranoid now, posting retractions left and right. It's Colin Stuckert. See, I'm obsessing over this guy's name. COLINSTUCKERT. That's his name. And I just felt so bad when it's not like I mispronounced the name. I actually changed like a huge part of the name. It's Stuckert. Anyway, he is a super passionate believer in the ancestral principles and the challenges that we face in our modern world, the disconnect between what is normal and what is natural. The whole idea of that is there are instinctual characteristics of humanity that clash with our societal constructs of how humans are supposed to behave. For example, marriage. He has a whole episode on how marriage is an institutionalized social construct that goes against our ancestral principles when it comes to mating and survival and tribe mentality. And it's just really interesting. He doesn't really try to force any belief. This is meant to expose you to a different way of thinking, to make you think about things like infidelity and why people fall out of love. And the principles of our ancestors shed more light into maybe why we instinctually behave in the ways that we do. So it's a super thought-provoking podcast. Yeah, I think you guys should have a listen. It's the first podcast that I ever listened to. And if you just go onto Spotify or iTunes and search the Ancestral Mind podcast, a lot of great content on there. And everyone's going to know how to spell his name if you want to search it that way. Okay, so I want to talk about some difficult topics that go into more specifically some of the experiences that I alluded to in the previous episodes. So if you haven't yet listened to episodes 1 and 2, I would suggest doing that because I expound upon things more and more. And I want every episode to live alone and stand alone, but this is all interconnected. It's kind of like a giant puzzle. So many pieces go in different places, and then when you step back from it, the picture starts to come together. That's a good metaphor for the experience. There will be crossover in each episode of the concepts that I reference. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about divine storms, which I mentioned in the last episode. I'm going to get into more of that and what they mean. And I'm going to reference back to, first of all, what is an ego and what does that mean for me and what happens when an ego dies. And I'm going to talk about how those two things, divine storms and ego deaths, have led to major breakthroughs in the wake of a pretty significant ending to a friendship that I had a while back. I'll get into all of that, as well as ego deaths that followed. So there are more than one. And usually when one happens, it's like a river dam. When you have one, more will follow. And then I'm going to end with some tips and things that you can implement into your life to better your experience on an everyday basis. So let's get into it. In the last 2 episodes, I mentioned divine storms, which is a term coined by the author and speaker Mastin Kipp, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. So, what is a divine storm? He also calls it shitstorms. Everybody knows what a shitstorm is. Half the people that I talk to are probably in the middle of one. It's so relatable. Shitstorms are whenever you feel like the universe, God, the entire world is against you. Nothing seems to be going right. Everything is falling apart around you. You can't grasp at any of the things that you used to have a really good hold on, and there's no telling when it's going to stop. It is a total loss of control. Everybody that I talk to nods their head like, yes, I know what you're talking about. And they kind of have to be big things. It's not like you stub your toe and then you get a paper cut and then your dog shits on the rug. It's more big things. You get into a car accident and then you lose your job, your girlfriend breaks up with you, or your boyfriend cheats on you, or your marriage ends. Big things that are happening all around you that are important and valuable to you that you just can't understand why all these things are falling apart around you. That is a shitstorm. That is a divine storm. And the reason that it's divine, it's a combination of events that are inducing massive real pain in your life. Ultimately, divine storms come to clear out whatever is not a part of your next layer of growth. It's like a garage sale. It's like a yard sale happening in your life. There are things in your life that are no longer serving you. You don't want to get rid of them. You're hanging on to them because it's comfortable and you're used to it. The universe is saying this chapter needs to end. It's the universe's way of shaking things up for you, basically. I had never heard of an ego death. I didn't know what that meant when I first uncovered this. So it helps when you unpack what an ego actually is and what it means. So what is an ego? An ego is a constructed identity of self. So the ego categorizes and classifies the world around you into little boxes to help you understand what is going on in this environment that surrounds you. So we all have egos, and egos classify things as right or wrong. Egos classify things as good or bad. Egos are the way that we understand and interpret the world around us. So an example is, I'm bad at math. That would be an ego-driven belief, is that I am bad at math or I am smart. So the ego hides behind I and me in those thoughts and statements about our identity. Eckhart Tolle describes the ego in an excellent way, and I'm going to read what he wrote. So one way to think about ego is as a protective heavy shell, such as the kind some animals have, like a big beetle. This protective shell works like armor to cut you off from other people and the outside world. What I mean by shell is a sense of separation. Here's me, and there's the rest of the universe and other people. The ego likes to emphasize the otherness of others. I love that example because it's hard. Sometimes it's difficult for me to kind of think about what an ego really is. Is that my ego talking? When does my ego step in? What's triggering the ego to step in? How much control do I actually have over my own thoughts and beliefs, or is that my ego? So your ego is negativity. Your ego is limiting beliefs. Your ego is anything that is holding you back. And I think that so many people are so used to it that we don't even realize that the ego is steering the ship in our lives. And that is something that is directly tied to divine storms, at least for me in my situation, because the divine storms in my life that have happened recently have resulted in ego deaths of mine. So things are so connected in my experience that they happen at different times. I'm just trying to organize how I explain each breakthrough and moment of clarity so that you guys can understand how it really matters and why it's made an impact on my discovery. Something that's really hard for me personally, and I know a lot of people can relate as well, is when a friendship ends. And a lot of people I talk to can totally relate. I don't know. It's weird to think about. Why do friendships end? Why do they have to end? It can be really shocking when they do. It's funny because egos are tied to everything, even the way that we manifest our relationships with other people. Part of the reason that friendships are so complicated is because you have multiple egos working sometimes in tandem, sometimes against one another, sometimes they clash, sometimes they flow. So I had a friend over a period of a few years that I was very close to. This person and I actually worked together. We traveled together. We spent a lot of time together. We had great conversations and deep, meaningful conversations. And then we also had the ability to make each other laugh. And we kind of had our own communication that other people didn't understand. Do you guys ever have that friend or that person that you have a kinship that when you're together, a lot of other people are just like, I am going to get out of the room because there's no point in me even being here anyway. This is the kind of friendship that I had with this person. Like frickin' frack. So this was somebody that I thought was going to be an important player in my life for many years to come. Speaking at my wedding, me speaking at this person's wedding, watching each other evolve and grow through life and reach new stages. And it's weird when you have that, you just know this friendship is for life. This is going to be someone that I want in my life throughout. And then when you realize that it's actually coming to an end, it's very out of body. It makes you feel like, what do I even know about myself and the world if what I thought was so absolute was temporary and fleeting? This person that I was very close with, that I'd honestly given a lot to, that I enjoyed so much their company, that I could be myself around the most, that we could talk about anything. This person and I had an interaction that I think they must have had an interpretation that was not what I intended for them to receive. And so very abruptly, this individual completely closed any and all access points to the relationship connecting me to this person. It was super abrupt. I had no way of really knowing what was actually on this person's mind because they completely shut me out. Blocked phone numbers, blocked social media accounts, unreplied emails. It went from this person was someone that I talked to almost every day, all day, to a blockade. You will not be communicating with me ever again. I didn't want to overreact. I wasn't sure what was happening, if maybe there was something that I didn't, like some sort of explanation. Yeah, so this was one random Tuesday night. I had a plan for the evening and I was going to work on something. And then when I realized that this had happened, it sent my world into a tailspin. I was like, what is happening? Why did this person block me? And then I started running through the portfolio of interactions that we'd had recently, and none of it made sense. None of it added up. I was like, why did what is going on? Am I overreacting? What is happening? I just got very anxious thinking about, did I say something? Did I do something? What? I have no way of even finding out because I cannot contact this person because this person has completely shut the door on me. It was the ultimate ghost. I can't even picture a ghosting that is more definition textbook ghosting. One day we're hanging out and having dinner together. The next day, you and I are done, was the message that I got. I didn't want to panic. I didn't want to overreact. I didn't want to overthink it. I had to sift through my emotions. And this was at a point in my journey with my life coach, Erica, that I didn't have a lot of understanding of the purpose or meaning behind some of the things that she was having me do. And I wasn't the person that I am now. So it was difficult. I didn't know, what do I do? Like, how do I handle this? I don't know what to think or say, or how do I react? Do I react? I just got super confused when I was thinking about how I should take the next steps in handling this new situation that I'm in, that one of my very best friends has completely decided to end the relationship. So I called Erica. I didn't know what else to do. I just called her. It's funny because, and you guys will meet her on an upcoming episode, hopefully the next episode, but she's just so calm and level-headed. So I'm calling her in this crisis and I'm like, Erica, what do I do? I don't, what's happening? Like, like everything's going crazy. I don't even know who I am right now. One of my very best friends is ending the relationship. It's not my choice. I have no say in it. Like, what do I do? I'm powerless. I don't know what I was expecting Erica to do, like like plan an intervention or something, like get us both in the room. I don't know. I had no real goal in calling her other than the fact that I was like, she'll calm me down. She'll help me figure things out. I felt like helpless after talking about everything that I did know about the situation. I felt helpless in that moment. And there was a pause, and I was just thinking in my mind, Erica, you got to come up with something. And she did. She told me a story. She said to me, there's this Buddhist proverb that I'm going to share with you. There was a farmer who had a horse, and one day this horse ran away from the farm. The neighbor of the farmer came over to him the very next day and said, I heard your horse ran away. That's awful. My sincere apologies. And the farmer responded to the neighbor and said, well, who's to say what's good or bad? And the next day, the horse returned to the farm with 10 other horses. So there was 11 total. So when the neighbor heard that the horse returned with 10 other horses, he came over and said, congratulations, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you that this turned out the way it did. And the farmer responded again, well, who's to say what's good or bad? The following week, the son of the farmer was riding one of the horses that had returned with the original and fell off and broke his leg. And when the neighbor found out about that, he came over and said, I'm so sorry to hear that your son has injured himself. That's terrible. And the farmer responded with a shrug, who's to say what's good or bad? So shortly after that, a war broke out in the country, and the government was going around and drafting men to serve in the military to go to battle. And when they got to the farm, they were unable to draft the son of the farmer because of the injury that he had. So the neighbor came over and said to the farmer, that's such amazing news that your son doesn't have to serve in the war because of the injury. And the farmer replied, well, who's to say what's good or bad? So the point of this story is that no matter what happens in our lives, we can't determine at that very moment whether things are good or bad. Who's to say what's good or bad when something happens in our life? And that was the story that Erica shared in this moment. And obviously she was referring to the friendship death. While I was listening to her tell this story to me, I was so overcome with emotion. I wasn't crying over the friendship ending. I was experiencing this. I didn't even know what it was. I was just like, what is going on inside of my body where this story is being told to me? It makes sense. I can see the parallel and why she's telling me this. Something happened inside of me. I had this vision in my head as she was telling me this story. Like the story was going on, she was explaining it to me, I was absorbing it, and I was having this moment, this visual moment. I was so overcome with emotion because I was freaking out. So when she finished the story about the Buddhist farmer, I was very emotional and crying, and I wasn't expecting it. And Erica was silent and taking it all in. And when I regained my composure, she was curious as to what was going on in my mind. And I told her about this experience that I was having. And I said, I feel like I am in a room that I've been in my whole life. And the furnishing is familiar. All the decor is familiar. I know where I am. In this room that I am standing in, on the walls are pictures hanging with words that are familiar to me. And each of those pictures with the words represents something that I reach to and go to in order to handle the things in my life, the difficult times and the trying times. Things like resentment. Another one that said anger. Another one that said revenge. Another one that said holding grudges. Just all over the walls, these pictures with these words that I knew so well. I was standing in this room looking at all of the coping mechanisms and strategies and tools that I reach for in order to get through these difficult times. And I'm in the room that I've been in my whole life, and I didn't want to be there anymore. And so I turned and saw the threshold of a doorway, and beyond that doorway was complete blackness heading into, I don't know, another room, but I couldn't see past the door frame. And as she was telling me the story about the Buddhist farmer, I was taking steps towards this doorway. My heart was pounding. I'm sweating. That was what was freaking me out. I was literally leaving a place that I had been my whole life, that I knew so well, and I was at the precipice of a completely new room that I had never been in, that I didn't understand, that I was afraid to find out what was in there. And I'm standing at the doorway and I'm starting to walk through. When I explained this to her, she instantly knew. She said to me, "You are having an ego death. You are changing. You are shifting into someone new. And the room that you are leaving represents the person that you always have been. And now, with this experience that you're going through, you are actually walking into a new arena. And the reason that you are freaking out and the reason that you are so overcome with emotion and you're scared right now is because I'm telling you now that when you walk through that doorway into that new room, you are never going back into the room that you've been in your whole life." And it clicked for me. I remember thinking, this is a big monumental move. She said, "No, you're never coming back into that room." And that was why I was so scared. So when she explained this to me, it all began to make sense. And she said, "The pictures hanging on the wall are your ego. And this is your ego dying. You are changing. You are evolving." And she explained that this had happened to her as well. She said, "I've had this happen to me in multiple facets of my experience of growth. And this is what you're experiencing right now. You're experiencing an ego death." It was funny because in my head, I was thinking about the time in college when I had decided that I was going to come out of the closet. And I made that correlation without telling Erica, and without even saying anything, she spoke up and said, "Think of it as coming out of the closet. It's terrifying because you're about to become the person that you really are. And when you do that, you can never be the person that you used to be. And that's why it's so scary. And that's the kind of experience that's happening right now with this ego death." And that was like, she read my mind. And when I came to that realization with her, her voice changed and she said, "Steve, I'm so proud of you. This is a good thing. I'm really, truly proud of you for what you're capable of embracing and what you're going through right now and how brave you're being. You're being incredibly courageous right now. And I'm just want you to know how proud I am of you." I'm not going to say it was at that moment that all of a sudden I was over what happened. In a way, it's still going on. I'm still mourning the death of a relationship that I never expected was going to die. Now, it's been about 5 months since that happened. I understand it differently. So now that I look back at that pivotal phone call that was sparked by a tragic death of a relationship in my life that was very important to me, it's very interesting. My current relationship with the experience of what happened versus when I was in the moment. Now I look at that experience as honestly a gift. It really sparked this entire shift for me. Because of this horrible experience where a friend rejected and abandoned me, I had an ego death and experienced a shift into becoming a new person. And that is a gift. This was a positive shift for me in my growth and my development. It was an important piece of the puzzle that I needed to happen in order to gain a full picture of who I really am. And I'm still working on that puzzle, but it was an important piece and I needed it to happen in order to evolve and grow. Erica also makes the metaphor of picture a driveway in front of your house and you have 5 spots available in this driveway. In order for anything new to come in and park in your driveway, an old vehicle has to leave. Sometimes in our lives, vehicles leave and our driveway is empty and it's a loss and it's painful and it hurts so bad and you can't understand why you've been deserted. But when that opening is available, a new vehicle can come in and take its place. You can think about the people in your life that have come and gone, and it's everybody was there for a time and a purpose, and when they leave, they make room for new relationships and new people in your life. It just changes how you look at a loss or a friendship ending as this person left and now I have availability for somebody new to come in that can fill that spot. It's all a great lesson to me. And I never would have shifted the way that I did had that not happened. And at the time, I didn't think about it. I wasn't thinking that this has a greater purpose and meaning. And at that moment, I just wanted to figure out what was going on because I was upset because the status quo of my life was being totally shaken up. Sometimes when things get crazy and you can't understand why things are happening the way they are, it's okay to exist in the instability and trust that this is happening for a reason. There's a saying that life does not happen to us, it happens for us. And that was a moment where life was happening for me. I didn't know it at the time, but now looking back, that totally happened for me. Life happens not to us, but for us. Ultimately, in that moment, I was discovering that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Another thing is that friendships have seasons and life has seasons. And if we think that everything is going to be summer all the time, all the live long day, that's not a very realistic approach to how to handle life. Friendships have seasons. You could be in summer for a long time with a friend and then all of a sudden it's the dead of winter and maybe you even have to let go, and that's okay. We want to have a handle on how our relationships are going to go because it makes us feel like we have control and that we understand our environment. But this is an entirely different person that we're talking about that is separate from you. And you have to be able to embrace the unpredictability, the lack of knowing, and find the ability to accept that I'm grateful for this friendship right now. I have to be willing to let go of the perception that I have any control over the outcome of this relationship. So I imagine that a lot of you guys have maybe not exactly the same experience, but something similar where a friendship that you expected to last a very long time or your whole lifetime, all of a sudden you found out that that idea is all coming crashing down. And just take a moment and think about a friendship that has ended and what that felt like in the moment. I'm sure that there was anger and bad words and negative emotions. I'm sure there was being pissed off, wanting to get back at the person, wanting to walk up to them and be like, you don't even know what you're missing out on, showing them up. All these things that, you want to show off. You want to post an amazing photo of yourself on Instagram where you're in Dubai and you're living your best life and they're stuck in a cubicle. You got to think about these emotions that you felt at the time and maybe compare them to how you're feeling now. It's probably been some time since that relationship has ended. And how do you feel about it now? And what kinds of things evolved as a result of that negative experience of a friendship ending? If you're able to step back from your emotions and the horror of the experience and just say, what is happening here? What does it mean for me? And where are the lessons behind this experience? And hindsight is such a valuable tool. Okay, at the time I didn't know why this was happening, but now that I look back, that friendship ending actually led to the strengthening of another relationship that is so important to me. Or maybe I had an ego death, or maybe I had some other sort of breakthrough that happened as a direct result of this traumatic experience. I think the practice in this is that when things go wrong like this, because let's be honest, they're bound to happen again. This may not be your last friendship that ends. If we can, in the moment, step back and think to ourselves of this Buddhist story, I can't decide whether this is good or bad. There's no telling right now. We can't look at events in our lives and in the moment think this is bad or this is good, because that is your ego. That is your ego coming in, stepping in and trying to take control of the situation, take the reins. And that is just not a healthy way to experience an event. You'll be doing yourself a much bigger favor by stepping back, thinking of the story and saying, who's to say what's good or bad? Ego deaths are crazy. And once you have one, others are bound to happen. They come in droves. Like it's when Pandora's box is opened. Whew. I've always been hard on myself. That's in my nature. I got to delve into why I do that. That's like another podcast series alone. It's just a character trait that I'm working on. I'm working on improving that. I heard this quote somewhere that definitely stuck with me, and that is, treat yourself like you would your best friend. So if your friend comes to you one day in the middle of class or at work, or maybe you guys meet up for drinks after work, and your friend walks in and says, I'm so upset right now. I can't figure out what's going on. I'm stressed about the situation. I'm just really, really in a bad place. How would you react to that? Well, obviously they're your friend. You love them and you care about them. So you would nurture them and you would show compassion and you would say, you're doing amazing. I love you. Just try, here's some advice. Here's what I think. I just want the best for you. That's how you would handle that interaction with a friend that was going through a difficult time. You need to do that for yourself. And so many people treat themselves horribly, which is actually insane when you think about it. We have a friend that's going through a difficult time, and yet we show them love and compassion, and we coax them and we rub their back and we want them to feel better. But yet when we go through a difficult time, we just bear down and say, why can't you figure this out? What is wrong with you? Get your shit together. You're an embarrassment. You're a train wreck. We have the identical scenarios where somebody is going through a difficult time. It's either our friend or ourselves, and yet we treat our friend with love and compassion, and we treat ourselves with an iron fist. Why do we do that? I don't understand it, and I am a horrible culprit of doing this. So I had a moment of clarity. I can't even remember when this was, but I had another vision in my head, and this was another ego death, where I was picturing in my mind the experiences where I've been really hard on myself over something stupid. And I picture there are two versions of me. There's me, and if you want to join me on this vision, if you just close your eyes and picture yourself standing, it's you right now. Then you have like a clone, there's another version of you, and there's two of you, and you're facing one another. So there's two versions of you that are identical, and you're looking at one another in the eye, and you're standing 4 feet apart. You walk up to stand within 6 inches of one another, and you're looking at each other in the eye, and then one of you just starts berating the other one. You are a failure. You are a piece of shit. You mean nothing. You are never going to win. You are a loser. Why do you even bother? Horrible things, right? You're a piece of garbage. You're meaningless. You're worthless. And the one version of yourself that is saying that to the other one, while the other you takes it all in and feels hurt and damaged by this and emotionally distraught and starts crying, just breaks down, and their head falls in their hands and their shoulders shake, and you don't stop. You suck. You are a failure. You are a loser. Nobody likes you. You're going to end up alone. You just are incessant. You are an assault rifle of insults. And the other version of you can't take it anymore. And that version of you falls to the ground and just weeps uncontrollably. And the version of you that is hurling all of these insults has, in their own mind, won, looks down, smirks, and quietly turns around and walks away, leaving the broken, battered, abused, emotionally distraught version of you on the ground in tears. This was a vision that I had for myself. Whenever I think of it, I become emotional because we do this to ourselves on a regular basis. That's a visual representation of how we treat ourselves. We walk up to ourselves and break the other one down until they're just in pieces on the floor. And why do we do that? Who's that helping? That's helping no one. That's something that I've done my entire life. And all that does is leave you broken on the ground, unable to stand, crying. How is that helping you? How is that serving you? How is that building you up? It's not. And this was an ego death because I had to stop doing this. I said to myself, I need to stop doing this. This is not serving me. So to bring this back, and I did mention earlier that I was going to bring back older stories and kind of try to intertwine them together. I'm going to do a brief recap of when I was up in Calgary a couple months ago for work. I had an interaction, a hostile interaction with a coworker where she ultimately apologized afterwards saying, I'm sorry that I was so bitchy to you. I didn't mean to act that way. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. That was wrong of me. And when she opened that door, her and I hung out later and we had an intimate conversation where she explained a little bit more about why she was so stressed out at the moment, and her workload was crazy and she was just overwhelmed, and she was very vulnerable in that moment. And when she opened that door, I walked through and I came to her and I shared this exact ego death of the two me's, because my coworker had said, I'm really, really just so hard on myself. I don't know why. I can't stop doing it. I put too much pressure on myself, basically. She was telling me this, so I said, I understand where you're coming from. And I told her the vision that I had had about the two me's. And when I told her that, she said, I feel that. That is exactly what I do. And she related to it so well. And that is really the moment when I realized that I helped her. When I shared this ego death of my own, of the two versions of myself, one abusing the other one, she related to it and it helped her. That was so gratifying for me when I realized that when I shared a story that seemingly only mattered to me, it mattered to her also. And she said, that is big. That is huge. I feel that. And when she was feeling connected to my story, I was able to help her and to give her a tool to think back to that visual scenario of the two yous. And she said, I'm going to remember that. Another weird correlation was that in that same conversation with my coworker, I told her the Buddhist story that Erica had told me during the first ego death about the Buddhist farmer. And the very next day at work, she came up to me and she said, I talked to my boyfriend about some stuff and explained our conversation and how I've been really stressed out. And wouldn't you know that he sent me a link to the exact Buddhist story that you told me last night, like out of the blue. And this is not like Jack and Jill went up the hill, but everybody knows the story. I'd never heard this story. And so it was kismet. She was like mind blown, and so was I. So it's just so crazy the way things are related to one another. So what I did for the remainder of that week when I was up there in Calgary, it was I had my coworker do a gratitude list. I was explaining to her that I want you to do a gratitude list because it's going to shift how you see yourself in the world and how you look at the world. Instead of coming from a place of negativity, you will shift into an appreciation for the things that you have. You focus on the things that you're grateful for. So I had her do that every morning. Every morning while I was up there, I texted her to remind her. I sent her my gratitude list. She sent hers back to me, all the things. So gratitude in life, work, myself, and one other person. The one person on the last day that she was grateful for was me. So I'll read the text that she sent. It says, one person that I'm grateful for. So very grateful for my Steve, who has shown me such kindness and compassion. By sharing his own stories of struggle, it has encouraged me to talk and face my own. I never would have expected our other coworker would be as supportive as she was last night. When I opened up to her, it was nice being able to talk about it without feeling judged, but feeling supported instead. Steve fostered an environment where that could be possible, and I love him so much for it. That text just solidified why it was so important that I do this, why it's so important that I help people. Even if it was just for a day, I made such an impact on how she saw the world in a moment. And that is powerful when you're able to help other people feel as good as you feel. So those are some of my earlier divine storms and ego deaths, moments of clarity, visions in my mind that brought meaning to my experiences. And I am so happy to have been able to share that with you guys and hope that it inspires you to open your mind and maybe change your vantage point as to how you look at yourself in the world. And when experiences are difficult and when you face challenges and when things don't go your way, when your expectations are let down, that you step back and say, wait a second, this might be happening for me instead of to me. So I want to end with a couple tips and tricks, just because I want you to be able to walk away with some actionable steps to your self-discovery. My gratitude list for today. My list is really long, so I'm only going to read those 4 items that I told you about earlier: life, work, yourself, and one person. So this morning, I woke up early, and I will be getting more done because of it. I woke up insanely early, and I have been for a couple days now. I think it's because I'm so excited about this project. For work, I'm actually going to be home for a little while, which I'm grateful for. I've had a lot of travel in my past couple months. So yeah, being home in New York feels so good. I just love New York, so it feels really good to be here, and I'm grateful that I'm able to be home for I don't know how long. I'm hoping for at least a couple weeks, but so it feels really good to be home and working in my underwear. Feels so good. Whenever I have to go on the road, I have to wear clothes. Like, people expect me to be clothed. It really puts a damper on my day when I have to wear clothes. I next have to go to San Antonio, I think, which I've been doing a lot. I basically should lease an apartment down in downtown San Antonio, but I have to go in like the dead of July. And from what I've heard, it's going to be hot AF when I'm there. So I'm not looking forward to that. And it's humid too. It's like, why couldn't I have gone in the dead of winter? What are you going to do? Send me to Miami in August? Wait, this is supposed to be gratitude. I'm complaining. I'm actually complaining. Okay, anyway, that totally veered. See how you can veer into negativity? You got to step back and say, no, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm going to San Antonio in 110-degree weather. For myself, what I'm grateful for is my drive and passion for this podcast project. I'm so excited that I've found something that I believe in so much and that brings me to life so much. I'm like a happy little kid doing this, so it's just so nice to find something that you love. I just feel so connected to what I'm doing. I'm just so happy. I'm just so happy and so motivated by it. It's really, really motivating me. Just the motivation of being able to help other people makes me feel so good, and it drives me to do this. And one person that I'm grateful for is Erica. Just everything that she's shown me and just delving into that whole experience back in January just totally reinforces how much she's been there for me, how much she cares. It's just such an amazing experience to have somebody in your corner all the time rooting for you. It's so wonderful, and I'm so lucky to have her. So those are my 4 daily gratitude items at this point that I want to share with you. I have others that I do on a regular basis, but those are 4 of them. I want to discuss tips. So the last episode was actionable steps, tips that you could add into your life. And today I want to talk about things that maybe you want to remove from your life. And let's start with our good friend, social media. Oh boy, this could be an episode. This could be a series on its own. How to stop the addiction of social media. So there's an event series called 99U, which is Adobe's resource and event series to help creatives supercharge workflow and get them inspired. And it's just a leadership conference. And I was watching a presentation that was done by Simon Sinek. He talks about the impact of social media and our phones on our daily lives and in our happiness. And that when we interact on our phones, the text and the dings and the notifications and all those little signs that we're being acknowledged and validated, all of those little notifications actually releases dopamine in our brains. And dopamine release is what makes you feel happy and good about yourself and confident and secure. And it's basically the feel-good emotion. He also talks about how dopamine surges occur also when we drink alcohol, when we gamble, and when we do drugs. When he makes that correlation, it's very interesting in this speech, and I'm going to link it in the show notes, this speech, because it's super powerful. This correlation is not to be ignored. I mean, we are on our phones all the time, and he talks about how if you're walking through a room and you can't even be away from your phone, then you're addicted. So there's a strong similarity between the chemical reactions in our brain when we use our phones and we use social media with the chemical reactions that happen in our brains when we participate in those vices that we know to be highly, highly addictive. And that's just something to think about when we go about our days and use social media on a regular basis. We have to think about those things. So some of the tips that I want to share with you are about limiting your social media use. These are just things that I've done that have worked for me to varying degrees because I'm no better than anybody else. I'm just as into my phone as the next person. So one thing that I have done is on Facebook, I have just completely logged out of my Facebook. I actually don't even have Facebook on my phone because it's such a temptation to just click on Facebook. Sometimes you do it without even thinking. So I don't even have it on my phone. And then on my computer, I'm not logged in and I don't even have my password memorized. So in order for me to go into Facebook, I have to go to a document that has my password saved and I have to copy and paste. And I purposely don't look at the password because I don't want to remember it. So what I'll do is I'll just go to the document, kind of like look in my periphery and then just highlight where I know it is, the password, and then paste it into the field and then log in. And then I use it for like a minute or two and then I immediately log out. And that has really, really helped because I felt attached to Facebook for a long time and just using it all the time in autopilot, not even thinking about it. Just because if it's not there, you don't crave it. It's kind of like it's correlated to the exposure. So if you expose yourself to it less, then it won't be an issue. But the problem is that we don't know how to limit our exposure to these social media apps, and there's a cyclical flow that we're in that we can't get out of. So if you make it difficult for you to use the app, it will become less of an urge to use the app. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense in my mind. So that's all that matters. You got to find things that work for you. That works for me. I set a time limit for my Instagram. this has its flaws because honestly, when you set a time limit, you can exceed the time limit and then it will just ask you, do you want to be reminded that you are actually over your time limit? Like in 15 minutes, we can tell you. I don't even know if it has the best intentions. It's almost like they're trying to act like they want you to control your usage, but they really want you to go back in. So if you just maybe put that notification up so that you can't access it unless you press a button that says, hey, I want to override my decision to limit my usage, that helps. It's not perfect. Honestly, the logging out of Facebook completely has helped me a little bit more than the time limit for Instagram, but that's something that you can do to make it a little bit easier to avoid Instagram, or at least incessant Instagramming. Another huge thing that I have done for Instagram is I have entirely recurated my feed content. I think a lot of negative feelings tied to Instagram have everything to do with FOMO and feeling like other people are doing things that you wish you were invited to or you're jealous of, and people maybe that you have very superficial connections with that you have to stare at all the time. I mean, think about it in reality. If you had met somebody a couple times and then you instantly subscribed to basically having them mail you pictures of themselves all the time, every single day in the mail, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you want that content? So that's a weird example, but we're sort of doing that. You meet somebody and they're like, oh, follow me on Instagram. You're basically saying like, nice to meet you. Will you look at pictures of me every day forever? Like, why would we do that? So it kind of has to do with leaning into all this stuff, but I have realized the kinds of things that serve me on a regular basis and the kinds of things that don't. And so therefore I have hidden a lot of people from my feed on Instagram, and that has helped so much. This is your feed. You know, you can decide what you look at. You don't have to subject yourself to looking at stuff that makes you feel bad, or people that you don't really even know that well, or people that you really don't give a shit about. Why are you going to, just to appease them, you're going to say, hey, I will just look at everything you've got, all your garbage content. I want to look at it every day. Please bring it on. Shower me. Like, no one wants to do that. And you have to choose yourself over the minute happiness of making somebody else feel like they're being paid attention to. So I've just hidden. I'm going to try to figure out where I even do it. Okay, so if you go to your timeline and just, everybody pull out your phones. If you go to your timeline and just pick a profile of somebody that you follow, right? Oh, okay, I found it. If you go to their profile and you're looking at it and there's the buttons that say following or message, if you click the drop-down menu on following and then go to mute, there's a section, or there's a button called mute with an arrow, and if you click that, you can turn on the mute for posts and for stories. When the slider button is to the left and it's white, then it's not muted, but you can click that and it will turn blue and the slider will go to the right, and then posts will be muted. And it also has a note that says Instagram won't let them know you muted them. So basically people won't know that you don't give a shit. Which is so helpful in the awkward conversation of like, hey, I saw you unfollowed me. Why? I can't believe you unfollowed me. You don't have to have that awkward interaction where you have to justify why you don't give a shit about their garbage content. So that's a really great tool to basically make your Instagram for you. Why don't you take your Instagram back and make it for you? That's what I've done. I've followed a lot of inspirational accounts, really motivational quotes and thought leaders that really inspire me on a regular basis. So my discovery page, or whatever it's called, I think that's what it's called. Whatever that section of Instagram that has the magnifying glass, that is totally different than what it used to be. It used to be just crap, stuff that I would get sucked into. And when I was aware and I was clear in my mind that I am on autopilot sucking in this content that it's not serving me, it's not helping me, it's not making me a better person or helping me grow, I changed it all. And by muting certain people and then actively following and engaging with stuff that really contributes to my experience of using the app. I think we all have the best intentions when it comes to connecting with people online, but I wish there was a way that we could stop putting ourselves in these situations that actually don't serve us in the long haul. Like you meet someone once and then all of a sudden you have to look at their stuff forever and you never see them again. Well, you see them every day online, but you never see them again in person. There's such a disconnect about the relationship there. So I'll do a whole episode on social media and all that. And that topic is going to come up all the time. It's funny. It's like the elephant in the room. We all don't want to admit that it's actually really a problem, but these are tips and tricks that I use to make social media less of a negative influence and impact on my life. So I'll link the Simon Sinek talk in the show notes. Oh, and then I have one other this is an action tip actually, but I want to inspire you guys to call someone today. Maybe not today, but in the next couple days, call somebody that you haven't talked to in a while. And the reason for this is people don't call each other anymore. It's very rare to pick up the phone and call people. Yeah, call somebody out of the blue in the next couple days, someone that you haven't talked to in a while and someone that you really want to catch up with, that you've been meaning to catch up with. And yeah, call them and then tell them, I am calling you because I'm working on strengthening my relationships and I just want to know how you're doing. There's no reason for me to be calling you other than the fact that I want to catch up, I care about you, I love you, and I want to know how you're doing. Like, what's going on? Let's connect. It's not that difficult to just think of somebody that you love and care about that you've maybe not spoken to in a while and just call them and connect. It makes you feel good. That's the kind of dopamine release you need, not a ping on Instagram. So those are some tips that I want to bring to your world. And that is episode 3. Thank you to everyone who has been so supportive. I am so lucky. I have so many supportive people in my life. I got this amazing message that I want to read to you. Oh my God, Steve, just amazing. I listened to both. You're incredible. It's funny how you just know when someone is on a similar journey of self-discovery. I felt it so strongly last time we were together. Doesn't even have to be the same journey, and you know when someone is self-sabotaging also. That energy, either one of them, just radiates from them. I just love that message because it's proof that your vibe attracts your tribe. This is a person that is drawn to me. I've known her for many years now, but she's drawn to me now. We're closer because I'm putting it out there. And I'm excited because she's actually interested in coming on the show and sharing her journey, and that's definitely going to happen. She has a wonderful story that I can't wait to unpack with you guys. So many lessons can be garnered from her experiences. You guys will just love it. I just love that showing by example that you can open up and be vulnerable has connected me with other people. It's just such a great feeling. So I would love to hear your feedback. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about the show. I hope you guys can leave reviews and comments and email me if you have questions or any kinds of comments or criticisms. They're totally welcome. I want to make the show better. I want to make it more of what you guys need. So feedback is totally necessary in order to do that. Yeah, anything. Just send me an email about anything, please. My inbox basically is empty. I have no friends. Yeah, I would love to hear from anything that you guys have to say about the show. You could say it sucks, and I'll be like, well, how do I make it not suck? Just reach out to me. This is why I'm doing this. The email is info@youyourselfny.com. Again, that's info@youyourselfny.com. And I'm excited to say that I've launched the website. It's a work in progress, just like everything, just like me. But the site is live. So if you go to youyourselfny.com, all one word, you can find a link to the podcast episodes and show notes. So the show notes will have a description of the entire episode, the topics that we discuss, and then I'll have links to everything that I've referenced, how to find books and resources and the speakers that I've mentioned, and all that type of information will be at your disposal. So that is episode 3. Keep moving forward, guys. You guys are rocking this. I'm so happy that you're here with me. Thank you for being here with me, and we will talk soon.